So this is our talk.
Okay. This
Okay,
is our
so
talk.
today we're talking about 10 things
Homeschoolers get wrong.
Yes.
Homeschoolers get a lot of things right. I just want to throw that out there.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're
Yeah.
homeschooling, you've already won.
Yeah, you're awesome. I mean, I'm just gonna
Yes.
put that out there.
If you're homeschooling, pat yourself on the back, get yourself a chocolate bar, give yourself a spa day. I mean, I actually do feel like, I mean, it's like, it's a really hard job. And, you know, and then additionally, like, there's all this stress about college. So that you know,
it's just stressful. It's a stressful time, right? As you begin homeschooling in high school, you're stressed, and then as you get towards college, you're stressed because you want to make sure you're doing your kids right. So homeschoolers do a lot of things that are right, and we just want to throw that out there. But there's just some things we notice again and again and again through working with people and also in our group and other groups. So we just want to talk about 10 things homeschoolers often, but not always, and not all homeschoolers.
Often, and not all. Hashtag wrong. Not all homeschoolers.
Okay, we got to do those drawings. Remember we did that last time.
Okay.
There you go.
Number 10, we're going backwards. Number 10, parent paperwork matters and it's a benefit. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you want to say about this?
Okay, parent paperwork matters. It's really important. A lot of times we work with people who are overwhelmed by it, which I get. I mean, it is overwhelming. The first time I did it, it was completely overwhelming. Or they think that they have to prove themselves to schools, and that upsets them. And I want to reframe that for everyone. Yeah. The parent paperwork for homeschoolers is a huge benefit.
Huge.
It helps you tell your kids' story. It helps frame them in the way that you want them to be framed. You can highlight things that are important. And it really helps with college admissions. So I think you need to see it in the positive light, because even though it's a pain and it takes a while and, you know, no one wants to do it, it's helpful.
It's absolutely helpful. And, you know, different goals, you know, you can tailor your paperwork to your kids' goals. I think having more organized paperwork helps head off questions and suspicion, being really upfront. Like, my kid is homeschooled, like this is our home program, these are the providers
don't hide
we
it.
used, this is this we did, this is why we did it. And having it be really succinct and readable and look a little professional, I think helps your homeschool look good. And I think it does sort of stop people from asking questions. I think that's useful.
And also they don't have a lot of time, but if it's super organized and easy to read, it's so helpful to them and they appreciate that.
I mean,
and
even,
the other mistake,
at small schools, they're only spending like 10 or 15 minutes on the first read for your kid. And that's it. So they have to be, they can't spend that being like, okay, what does this mean? What is
where am I looking at?
Look through to page 70. Like, don't do that to them.
That's the thing I wanted to say. The other thing is, do not make your paperwork very long. I mean, you don't want it so overwhelming that they can't get through it all or it looks padded or anything. You want to tell a story. You want it to be easy to read. You want it to look professional. That's the thing. That's the goal.
Narrative.
You want to control the narrative.
And control the narrative.
This is why we have a parent paperwork package. And one of the things we provide is all those different transcripts and different ways to present your student, because I think it's super important. You shouldn't just have one way of looking at it. There may be a better way.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So we sell our templates. You don't have to buy our templates. There are free ones out there.
Yeah.
But we do have ours for the whole parent paperwork, all 4 pieces.
With videos.
With videos like this, where we go through, you know, different ways to sort of think about it for your individual situation. So okay.
Okay, 9. Oh, my phone. I have her list, but my phone keeps turning off. Okay, number 9. Thank you. Home-based classes count.
Yes.
This is super important. What do you want to say about that?
I think a lot of homeschoolers think that, oh, we've gotten to high school, we must outsource everything. We have to have it all be very official. That's not true. You still want to use these passions and interests and, you know, just inquiries that your kid has for home-based classes. So those can be they could be things in core academic subjects where you can make it better and design it yourself. That's
Yeah.
totally a great thing. Or it can be electives that add interest and some, uniqueness to your kid's transcript.
I think that's the real big takeaway here, is that because we say this to people and sometimes they still don't get it. They're like, yeah, but not really. And it really does add it. So let's say your student loves, I don't know, chemistry or science or something, and they're doing the AP course, that looks really good that year. But then maybe in addition to that, they can do a deep dive into an area of interest that in that area that they really love. And so they'll have 2 science credits on their transcript for that year. It shows that they have a little bit of a passion. They've done the outside verification through the AP course or maybe dual enrollment or whatever, but then they've also gone deep and shown their own interest and how they're driving the process. That helps in admissions. And a lot of public school students will not have those types of courses.
I don't understand why they don't listen.
Why? Listen to us, everyone. And also, I just want to say real quick, and then we'll go to the next one. It's really great for students. We talk to so many teens and they're like, well, on the side, I love to explore this, or I do a deep dive in this area. And they're so proud of it. They spend tons of time on it. And the one big takeaway is make sure the transcript reflects the work your students doing across the board. Yeah. You want to represent them truthfully and what they do and how they spend their time and everything.
I can't count the number of times that we've had a conversation with the kid or with the parent, and we're like, well, and what do you do with your free time? Are you doing anything else? And they're just kind of like, no, not really. And then somehow later in the conversation, it comes back to this, and it's like, oh no, he spends hours every week reading these books and
listening to this podcast.
Listening to these podcasts. I'm just like, wait, what? Why did you say you didn't do anything earlier? And it's because
a lot of times, but sometimes the teens are like, well, it doesn't really count. So sometimes it comes from the students too. Like they just don't realize it does count and it looks good. Yeah. Okay. Next one.
Number 8. Are you going to give me a drum roll?
I can't do it. You're asking me that noise. I can't do. These are things I'm limited.
Oh, so it's okay. So
can't do it.
I can't do a real drum roll, so
I can do that. I can play drums. So there you go. Oh, I should play drums. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, number 8.
Number 8.
Okay, wait, I had it.
Oh no, now you've lost it.
Yeah. You do not have to do all survey classes.
This goes a bit with what we were just talking about. It goes with what we were just talking about. In high school, or if you look at dual enrollment, and like, let's say you're looking at U.S. history, it'd be like U.S. history to 1850 or something, and then 1850, to modern times, and it's like, it's fine. You can do that if you want, but also you are a homeschooler.
If you're just trying to check the box, that's totally
and that's fine. You can totally do that, but you are a homeschooler. So what can you do that's different?
Yeah. I mean, and I think I feel like we see a lot of questions about this on our group, and from our clients and just in general, people who are like, well, we wanted to be sure we covered all of U.S. history. So we did all 3 of the survey classes at our, university, at our local community college. And I'm like, oh, you didn't need to do that. So
you can, if the students,
if a student's really interested in history, you maybe even should. But if they're not, then one of them is fine. And that's the thing, is at home too, like you don't have to have covered all of U.S. history, throughout time in order to count that as U.S. history or world history. You don't have to have covered every single place in the world, or like a whole survey. It is okay to specialize. It's fine. And that you can, and that's true in the sciences. That's true in English. Like you don't have to have American literature and British literature. You can have world literature. You could have African American literature. You could have women's literature. Like you can specialize in lots of different ways. It's completely okay. Now, if your student is going into that area, like if they want to go major in science, then there's a good chance that they should take the sort of, strong basic sciences. And this sort of specialization is what you do on top of that.
Yeah, which we were just talking about. And
right. But if your student isn't going into those areas, it is not a necessity.
You need to study American history. You have to. Mm-hmm. You need a world history course.
Yeah, you need a biological science,
Yeah.
you need a physical science, and you want to, and this will come up in a later one, but you do want to do, you want to do a variety of things and go above and
Right.
beyond requirements. So,
Yes. Yes. But
okay.
just remember again that, some of these more interesting courses look
Mhm.
good to colleges, especially like they don't want to just see all the classics and literature anymore. You can do a little deep dive
No.
there. You can add different types of,
Yeah.
certain courses, not survey courses for that, like African American literature or something.
Mhm.
That does look good.
It does. It looks great. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
7. Clep does not matter for admissions. I mean, this is one of my biggest pet peeves. It really is. It may be, I don't know if it's my top pet peeve because I think that's number one,
Yeah.
but it is up there. And
It's up
I
there for me
just,
too. And I'm just getting tired of explaining it over and over and
and
over
it comes
again.
up nonstop. I'm like, hasn't this died yet? But nope.
Nope. Homeschoolers are weirdly obsessed with Clep. If your kid, this really goes to goals too. If your kid is interested in four-year college, it's just not verifying anything for admissions for the most part. Now, there might be the rare school that sort of is like, oh no, we'll look at that. That's,
Yeah.
sure. But it's not common.
No.
And so you're not really adding anything to their transcript or experience. And even though CLEP tests aren't necessarily super hard, they take time. And so, the
It's
time to prep
energy.
for
It's
that.
energy devoted to
And
it.
it means you have to do a survey in order to prep for the CLEP,
Yeah.
in some cases. So you're not you're not adding anything to your student as a student. Now, if you 100% know, or 100% know this is where my kid is going, we know that they, this is exactly what they want. They're not going to change, which, that you really is really hard to predict. And the same thing too with costs. I think sometimes homeschoolers think they're saving so much money if they do it this way, but the reality is like you want to leave possibilities open, and the sticker cost is not the cost. Like you don't know what options your student might have down the line, and all of that about cost is so complex. And so it's just so hard to know if you're going to be able to use CLEP to save money and time.
So
And so, yeah,
here's one of the things I don't like. I don't like the goals that are associated with this,
yeah,
and it's not a deep learning experience, and not that
no,
everything needs to be a deep moving
no.
learning experience, but I mean, if you do too many of these or you do them too young and everything, you're you're not doing other things, and I think
Yes.
that's where it can get tricky and maybe not the best educational decision. And I
I
just don't
find that,
like, I think it's a game, like I think
yeah,
sometimes parents get swept up in the game of how many credits can I get my kid in the easiest possible way at the youngest possible age so that I can get them to college at an even younger age and it'll cost less and move them through the system and it doesn't really matter. But my takeaway is it does matter.
it
It does
matters.
matter. Yeah.
I think you're heading off other educational opportunities when you
Mm-hmm.
overly focus on these things. Number
6.
6,
Yeah.
pull your kids out when a class is failing them.
This, you know what? We're going to talk about this more in our Facebook Live in May.
Yeah.
This
Because
balance. So I
there's a
don't want to go too much.
balance.
Yeah,
We don't, because you
but
also shouldn't be a lawnmower parent and kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
blow over all the obstacles.
but you are homeschooling. You are
Hmm.
involved. You have to make a transcript.
Hmm.
You want to give them the best chance you can,
Yeah.
and also you don't want their I mean, I see this again and again that the kids' confidence has tanked. And
Yeah.
then once the teen's confidence tanks in academics,
Hmm.
it's really hard to get it back.
Yeah.
It's just it's hard, and they're telling themselves, I can't do this, I'm not smart enough, and blah blah blah. If you can get them out of that situation quickly and replace it with a course that will work, it's always going to be better. Not say you don't want to swoop in and save them. If they're just a few weeks into something and they're struggling a little bit, they may get it, they may turn that around.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's particularly bad when you know that something was hard for them, you know that it didn't work that well, and then you do it again for the next level or for another course. And
Yeah.
I've seen families do this because
Yeah.
they think like, oh, but it's good for them, it's building grit. why? Like, why would you do it that way? I think, you don't need to cushion them. And again, like Jill said, we're going to talk about this in our next Facebook Live, actually. It is this sort of balance, and I do think it's like really hard. But
It is hard.
if a student is, particularly like a dual enrollment class, if a student is failing, pull them out. A W is better than a D or an F.
Yeah.
And that's just hands down. And they'll see that it's a W, but knowing that you should stop and try again later when you're more prepared is, more mature
It's
than
a skill.
tanking a class. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a huge skill. And just remember, if they're doing dual enrollment and they are failing, they're under 18, they're not an adult. You enrolled them in that class. You decided they were ready for dual
You had
enrollment.
to sign off on it.
Yeah, if it's really obvious they are not ready or they can't handle the challenge or whatever it is, being on campus or whatever, pull them and wait it out a year and do other things.
Yep.
And then you can revisit the idea.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just think you want to set kids up for success in everything that you do. And also I think it's good just to remember that just because something is easier doesn't mean they're not learning. I think that sometimes we associate like difficulty with learning. And it is true that like, overcoming challenges and obstacles is one way that we potentially learn. But just because something's hard doesn't make it better learning.
Yeah.
And just because something is easier doesn't make it worse learning. And so I think it's good to remember that when you're approaching your students.
And just remember, some kids learn a certain way and some kids don't. And some things are difficult, even if you don't think they're difficult. There might be a reason why someone's failing something. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. What's next?
Here we go. Number 5. You have to go beyond the minimum. You set the requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actually, I was thinking number 5 is yours and 4 is mine. Okay, you tell me about 5. What you were thinking there.
I mean, I think that it really, I talked to homeschoolers who are like, oh, such and such a thing is not required for admission at, our state public schools. Therefore, I don't need to do it.
Yeah.
Only 2 years of foreign language is required. That's enough. There's only 3 years of science required in our state for graduation. So that's enough. Like, it's
and then they say, I could graduate them now. We hear that too. Yeah.
Whoa, hold up.
Yeah.
And so that's not how the requirements work. Those requirements are the absolute minimum, for graduation.
Yeah. They're the floor
in a university. And the vast majority of students, especially in admissions to a university that is a little bit, harder to get into, if it's at all selective, they are all going beyond that. And those students are your students' competition. And so that, this goes back to like numbers of credits too. Like a lot of homeschoolers think like, oh, 5 credits a year, that's everything. Or maybe 6 credits a year, that's plenty. And, it could be if your student does not have high goals, that could be fine.
Yeah.
But if their goals are even a little bit higher, then a lot of students are coming in with 7 credits, even 8 or 9, they're doing more. And so you want your student to reflect that, and it can balance. They don't have to all be the same level of intensity.
Yeah. I also wanted to add to that, like, because we talked about that last time in Facebook Live, and someone put a comment down that, no, you can do only 5 or 6 credits. It's fine. And it's like, okay, you can do 5 or 6 credits, and it might shut some doors though, to be aware of that. But you can easily get to 7 credits through these high input, low output courses that are interesting. Like we talked about them being interesting, that aren't going to stress your student out a ton, and they get on the transcript and help them. So you want to set them up for success to a point, so having those 7 credits is going to help you do that.
Yeah.
What's really funny is, okay, so this was, you have to go beyond the minimum. Okay. So the next one, I just want you to say the next one because it kind of is playing into this.
Okay. I tried to give them an order that made some sense. Okay.
Yeah. So this makes sense.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Four.
Number 4, less is not more, but also more is not
More. Yeah. Yeah. Which is kind of what you were talking about. So
more.
less is not more. You don't want to have, you don't want to go too little. You don't want to be
No.
minimum. You don't want to have things that aren't interesting or the kid's not learning or too few credits or whatever. But also going way over the top and doing so much and doing more, 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 more. Way too many credits, way too many hours in a credit, way too many intense coursework. That's not good either. And it's really going to burn out your team really fast.
Yeah.
So you have to find that balance. You have to find that balance for your team. I mean, really, and also for you. We sometimes work with families who are always questioning whether the credit they give to their student is actually a credit. Did they really do enough? You know, I mean, we've even heard sometimes where parents are like, well, I think I should add a little bit more to that dual enrollment course. And it's like, no, no, no. That dual enrollment course is the course and it's been verified and you don't need to add anything to it, even if you think your student didn't learn enough.
Yeah.
Don't do that. And maybe they've made it through, maybe you decide a course is based around a textbook and they made it through 92% of the textbook and the year's over. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's a credit. They've done the work. In high
know,
school, you don't do everything.
Yeah. I mean, some homeschoolers, they're just constant, let's add this other little program. Let's do this
Yeah.
program. Let's do that
Yeah.
program. But I heard such good things about this one.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
found
so
this one,
I know I
in
found
March.
this one. Maybe we should do both of these. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, those are two whole big, meaty, solid things. They're both good. You shouldn't do both of them. Like,
Yeah.
it's too much. And so you've got to pare it down. Otherwise you're going to, go overboard with your kid.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
overwhelm them.
And there's always more that you could add to something. And
There's
so you
always,
just,
there's always more.
there's always more.
So you just have to call it.
It's also like, I was just thinking, like, sometimes we have families who want to keep doing some work in summer before college. And it's like, no, it's over. You've done it. You've done everything you can. You've got to walk away from homeschooling this.
You wrote on that transcript May or June as the graduation date. You're not in charge anymore. Practice and sit with not being in charge anymore. Like, just,
which is hard. I get it. It's a transition. Yeah. But
you've been doing this the whole way through. So
yeah. You just got to walk away. Okay. All right. Number 3.
Okay.
Number 3. Aim for the 4-year experience. You can always detour. No, I like that. I didn't even notice that's what you wrote. Okay, aim for that. You can always do a detour. Okay, tell us what you mean here.
Well, I say you can always detour because we don't think that the 4-year college experience is right for every student. Like, it isn't. Like, we're not trying to say that. But I think that, for the vast majority of students, when you start out, you should be aiming for admissions at a 4-year school and not be thinking about things like, oh, are we getting the credits in? Oh, are we getting the college credits in? When the kid is in 8th and 9th grade, like, will they transfer? Like, at the school that my child is going to pick? Like, and it's like, no, think about admissions first. Think about helping your student be ready for a 4-year college experience. And, at a sort of, traditional time, starting at age 17, 18, 19, as opposed to like rush and get, front load all of that stuff into high school. There are so many benefits to a 4-year experience for students in launching them. And when they can take advantage of those things, internships and co-op programs and research, in college, then they are better set up for careers and to get out of your house and to make money so they're not reliant on you. And, and so sometimes this does mean taking a bit of a leap of faith. Sometimes it also means spending a little bit more money. And when I say a little bit more money, I'm not saying like, oh, you should be full price at an Ivy League $100,000 school. That's for an extra year. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. But sometimes, middle class families are making decisions where they're heading off spending what amounts to, just a few $1,000s over the course of several years. And their kid is being robbed of experiences you know, like living independently in a, you know, off in a dorm and
Yeah.
then with other students and then,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and having the opportunity to go do an internship or something that will help set them up better for their future. And
Yeah.
that makes me sad.
Yeah. We always push the 4-year experience in
Yeah.
our group. And we help parents with that,
Hmm.
to get their kids there. It is something that helps a lot of students today.
Yeah.
I like to call it finishing school for today.
Yeah.
And you need it. I mean, a lot of kids need it. Now, is it right for everyone? No, absolutely not. And I had one who didn't do the 4-year experience. I totally get it. It's not always
I've
for
got one
everyone.
who's not either.
Yeah.
So it's, you
Yeah.
know,
So
mhm,
we understand that. And we also understand that cost plays into this for a lot of families.
absolutely.
And
Hmm.
there's a lot of anxiety around cost in college. We understand that too.
Yeah.
But keep the door open for as long as you can. Even if
Yeah.
you were going to detour, like you said,
Hmm.
is the number one choice that we think every family should do. Okay, you're on number 2.
Oh, I'm on number 2. Okay. Number
Yeah.
2. Brrr. Accreditation does not matter except in very rare cases.
Okay, I think we could just leave it at that. Accreditation that does not matter except in very rare cases.
Hmm.
I, I it doesn't matter. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
I mean,
I don't know what you're reading online or how you're being scared and why you're anxiety. I mean, I understand that there's so much anxiety. I get it. So we're just here to tell you. We're
yeah.
here to tell you accreditation does not matter.
No, and the number one reason that accreditation might matter is if your student plans to go back to school, like to a K-12 school, to a high
In
school,
high school.
to a
Yeah.
high school,
Yeah.
not to college.
Yeah.
And so then high schools care about if your high school credits are accredited. There are a tiny, like half a dozen, maybe a dozen schools that might care about
At,
a little
at the
bit in the
most,
US, you know,
at the
and
most.
then schools abroad might care, but sometimes they don't. They care more about
No,
AP scores
yeah,
or
the
other
testing. A
things,
lot of them are
testing.
testing. Yeah.
And so you just, it is not a major concern for 99.99% of homeschoolers. And when you focus on making everything accredited, you're closing the door to other possibilities like those home-based courses that we talked about mattering so
Yeah.
much.
Or really interesting courses by homeschool providers that your
Yeah.
kids want to take. Oh, but they're not
Hmm.
accredited, so we can't do it. That's too bad because some of those are the best courses out there
Yeah,
and they're great learning
some
experience.
of them are more rigorous academically or just more interesting.
Yeah.
You just have more options that way. It's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, quite frankly, you can save money if you're not doing everything accredited because some of these
Hmm.
accredited things are expensive.
They cost more. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's it. We're going to leave it there. Number 1.
Number
This,
1.
number 1. Where's my noise?
Brrr.
Okay. Number 1. Oh, wait. I don't have my thing up. This is the thing that has been driving us a little nuts lately, and I'm just going to say that. Number 1, use dual enrollment strategically, if at all. Okay. Our group, which is our group, and so
We're not a dual enrollment group. I'm just going to put that out there.
but we are kind of because it's topic after topic after topic after topic. And the whole reason this came about is that someone asked in our group, when did your students start dual enrollment? Which is fine. That's, when did your students start dual enrollment? But some people are responding, and this is fine because every family is different, but some are starting so young. And I just don't even think that is an appropriate place to put an answer that your 7 or 8-year-olds doing dual enrollment, because that's not the case for many people. And the one thing that's driving me a little nuts is and I understand profoundly gifted students. I do.
Yeah.
I have a great understanding of that.
Yeah.
And
Both
if
of us
you
have
feel,
worked with profoundly gifted kids. Yeah.
But I have an issue when you're having very young students do dual enrollment, which is on a permanent record, before they can really even grasp what that means.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how good they are at, their areas of interest.
Yeah.
I don't think that, 9-year-olds get that. They just don't
Yeah.
get it.
No.
And it's because it's not the same. It's just not the same thing. Or really it's English that I see. It's in the humanities in particular, particularly with English. where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you've done English 101, you know, as dual enrolled at age 10 or something. Your kid, it is pointless for them to take AP. It's
Yeah.
pointless.
Because AP
And
is
all
same.
your home-based coursework looks like it's less rigorous,
Yeah.
because why weren't you building on the thing that they already did? It looks like they burned out too young. And I have no doubt that you don't even need to be gifted to get through a sort of online Comp 101 class
No. Yeah.
at
Not
a,
that
you
hard.
know, as a middle schooler. You just don't.
No.
You need to have some executive functioning skills and some writing skills, and beyond that, a lot of kids can do it. So it's not even that impressive. And then you can't build on it. What are you going to do next? You're going to, I mean, a lot of community colleges, you run out of classes, and a lot of kids, like, you know, at age 13, 14, parents don't want them in the literature classes, because
Yeah.
sometimes they're reading literature that has really dark themes and, you
Yeah.
know, sexuality and things that parents don't feel like their kid is ready for yet. Or discussion that includes those themes. And
Yeah.
so, you know, you've just headed off a lot of possibilities. And your kid took this class that wasn't that challenging. You know, there were a lot of other ways to make it challenging. And this is true across the board for a lot of things. You want to create a narrative in high school, okay, from the start of high school. And this is the thing too, is all those college classes, you have to report them now too.
Yeah. You have to put them all
So
down. They're permanent.
they're permanent. And so it's not like other middle school coursework where you can
Yeah.
play around with things. So now you've done these things that you have to put down. And if your kid did a ton of dual enrollment in middle school, and then in high school, they just did some home-based courses, even if those were more rigorous, they
Yeah.
don't look more rigorous. It now looks a different way than it would if you just hadn't done that stuff in the first place. It now looks like your kid took a step back, they got overwhelmed, they burned out. And colleges don't want a kid who burned out at a young age. And again, it doesn't mean you can't, once you've done a dual enrollment class, you can't do anything at home. That's not the case.
Yeah.
But, you know, in that sort of core, you know, progression, you do want to build on that. And it just changes the way that those subsequent classes look.
So I also want to say here, we're quite passionate about this. But I also want to throw out too, it's not better to do more at a young age. That does not mean that your kid is super advanced or anything.
No.
And we're now seeing some talks about getting the bachelor's degree before you've even, you know, by 16 or 17. And so these are not rich educational experiences.
No.
They're not getting the opportunities that you talked about earlier, you know, with internships and research and everything. They are so young, they may not even want to study whatever it is they're studying when they're 20. I mean,
Yep.
kids change so drastically
And it
from
doesn't matter if
14 to
they're
16 to
profoundly
20.
gifted. They just
Nope,
change, because that's
they
brainwashing,
change.
that every kid will change. That doesn't
Yeah.
have to do with, yeah.
And
And
it's not a race and it's not a competition. And I
no.
really want parents, what upsets me is that parents see these threads,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of this information is very helpful, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it can be overwhelming. And we naturally, as parents, are always self-analyzing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we see our kids, even if you don't want to, you can't help it sometimes, you know, like they are a reflection of you and your decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, am I doing enough for my kid? Can my kid compete at this level? Oh no, they're not doing dual enrollment by 12 or 13 or 14 or 15. I failed them. They're never, ever going to catch up. And it's like, it's this rat race, and it's too much. And it's a lot of pressure on kids. And I think if everyone could just step back a little bit, you know, try hard not to compare yourself to what every other family's doing. Everyone's doing different things, and realize there's a ton of paths to colleges, and there's a ton of colleges out there,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't need all these dual enrollment to get into.
I mean, I would say too, think about who you're doing, who is this dual enrollment for? Is this for
Yeah.
grandma who never valued that you were homeschooling? Or is this actually for your kid and to open up their possibilities?
Or is it
Right.
just for Facebook groups, you know,
Yeah,
like,
I know. And so it also, like, we're not seeing, you know, even if your kid starts at a more sort of traditional age, like, you know, into freshman year, beginning of sophomore year or junior year. I mean, a lot of people are really focused on get the associate's degree in college. And this goes
yeah,
back to what we talked about, like aim for a 4-year experience. You know, it can be fine. Like some students just are driven, they're going to want to do that. But I have to tell you, it's not the biggest boon in college admissions. And
No.
a lot of parents don't seem to get that. They think that if their kid has an associate's degree, then, oh, boom, my kid is a shoo-in. This will look amazing. And in reality, it doesn't. So the colleges that are, it can look good for your state flagship sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
they
There's
like that.
certain,
They know your
yeah.
community college. And then it also means that you've exhausted that possibility. And so that is sometimes a good strategy,
Because the student needs
very
to go
specifically,
somewhere.
right? Because they need
Yeah.
to go somewhere. So sometimes that's a good strategy for that one specific thing. But for a lot of private schools, they just kind of don't care as much. They like to see it. It's not that it's not valuable, but the associate's degree in particular, they just don't think is great. And that's why you want to be more strategic and think about, well, am I doing these right things? Like, so some parents are thinking like, okay, I want to do dual enrollment at our community college in person, and in person is more valued in admissions than these online courses. Okay. So, and you're doing that so that you can get, say, lab sciences in a lab
Yeah.
with the equipment. That's a good
Right.
reason to do it.
Yeah. Really good
Or
reason.
like, oh, let's say that your community college has an excellent arts program or an excellent literature program or something, and you want that in-person discussion, you want those access to those courses.
Music courses. That's a good.
Music, yeah, music, absolutely. And so there are reasons or subjects, like if your kid is interested in a subject that doesn't have a lot of other ways to verify it, like let's say they're
Yeah.
really into psychology, maybe they take psychology 101 so that then they can take 202 and
Yeah.
abnormal psychology and psychology of
Hmm.
women and psychology of society, all these sort of upper level courses, and really dive into an interest that doesn't have opportunities in other coursework. So I think that's, so there are ways to do this strategically. And most of those ways don't involve getting an associate's degree.
Yeah. And I want to say one thing that, we just did this big tour across the country and we stopped at tons of colleges and we talked to admission officers and we've heard this and we've seen it too in clients that we've helped. And the associate's degree is not the thing they're looking for. I mean, dual enrollment in person is a great thing. And everything you just said is strategically use of dual enrollment, but it does not have to be this associate's degree at all. You just do not need it. So keep that in mind. You definitely don't need an associate's degree by 14. Keep that in
No,
mind.
no,
No,
that's not. Yeah.
and dual enrollment, I mean, it's a great resource. It's out there. Yes, your team can build up college credits. Yes, that can save money in the long run, but it's not the only thing. And having a rich educational experience for high school, there's a reason why you homeschool, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I just think keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Let's end on that.
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
We've enlightened everyone.
Yeah, you can take our advice or not. It's okay. We don't mind. But we do have a group. Feel free to drop in. We do
Yes,
Facebook
drop
Live
into our
once a month.
group, College Confident
Yeah.
Homeschoolers. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.